What up guys, Ronnie here from Primal Gourmet. One of the things I get asked most often is how do I keep my knives razor sharp on a day-to-day basis? And there's two things that you really need to know. One is how to sharpen a knife, and then one is how to maintain a knife. Depending on how much you use your knife and how much abuse it goes through, you're probably only going to have to sharpen maybe twice a year for the average home cook, but maintaining should be done probably every single time you use your knife. In terms of sharpening your knife, you have one of two options. You can either go with an electronic sharpener, like the Chef's Choice, which is probably older than I am at this point, or you can get a Whetstone, a Japanese Whetstone. These come in varying degrees of price and quality. This one's a cheapo from Amazon, but for most people, most home cooks, this will do the trick. I think it's about 30 bucks. I'll link it below just in case. If you go with an electronic sharpener, this is really all you'll need in addition to a honing rod. This is that metal rod that always comes in your knife block if you ever purchase a knife block. It's great to have. You're going to need this for regular maintenance. This will not sharpen your knife though. It'll just bring the blade back into alignment. If you choose a whetstone on the other hand, you're going to need a minimum of 2 stones or a combination stone like I have here. This one is a combination of a 1000 grit and a 6000 grit. In addition to that whetstone, you're going to need something that's called a truing stone, also referred to as a flattening stone. And this is going to make sure that every time you use your stone, you're going to be able to flatten the surface, because over time, no matter who you are, you will always end up with an uneven surface on your whetstone after sharpening. Now there are videos that compare both electronic sharpeners and whetstones, and I really agree with some of them in terms of it really depends on what kind of knife you have and the kind of cook you are, the kind of person you are. If you want to spend a little bit more time sharpening and just sort of zoning out, and I almost find this to be a meditative process, then a whetstone might be the option for you. If you're really short on time, maybe you've got a couple kids running around, you need something quick and dirty, then an electronic sharpener is probably a better bet. The electronic sharpener will sharpen quite accurately, quite consistently, most German steel knives. In fact, most Japanese entry-level knives can be sharpened with an electronic sharpener. I'm talking about brands like Miyabi, Shun, or Global. If you get into things that are like Japanese handmade, hand-forged blades, you probably want to use a whetstone. And a more expensive, higher quality whetstone at that, probably with a higher grit so that you can get it even sharper and a more polished edge. Since I use both, I'm going to show you how I use both. I'm going to use the electronic sharpener to sharpen my Zwilling 8-inch Pro Chef's knife. Great blade, highly recommended for the everyday home cook. And then I'm going to use the whetstone to sharpen my Miyabi MCT 6000. Sometimes this is referred to as the Artisan series. This is a 6-inch gyuto, which is refers to the shape of the blade. Really, really beautiful knife. This is the knife I recommend for maybe like the more intermediate or advanced home cook. Fantastic blade. Regardless of which sharpener I use, I always maintain with my honing rod. This is a daily ritual that you should pretty much ingrain into your routine every time you pick up a knife. With the Chef's Choice electronic sharpener, it's really just as easy as turning it on. It's going to be a little bit noisy. And then just running your blade through these settings. So you're going to start at setting number 1. Now the other side. Now you can see that there's a little bit of a burr on the edge of the knife here. Depending on how bad of a shape your knife is in, maybe you need 4 to 5 pulls. The second step is just as easy as the first. You just got to run it through the second setting. You can see that most of the burr has been removed. There's a little magnet here on either side of the sharpener. That's going to attract some of that metallic burr that's built up on either side of the blade. And then it's really as simple as putting it through the last series of blades. That's it. That was really, really simple. I can feel just along the edge of the knife that it's quite sharp. The burr is only on one side of the knife, which is normal. That's exactly what you'd get if you use a whetstone. But you'll see that what happens is there's still these tiny, tiny, almost microscopic frays along the edge, and we need to get rid of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the honing rod to just clean some of that up. One thing to note when you're using the honing rod is you want to maintain the same angle that your knife was sharpened at, which is approximately 12 to 15 degrees. And it's really just as simple as running the knife all the way down and across so that you get in one fell swoop the whole knife making contact with the honing steel. If you're a beginner, I recommend maybe putting the honing rod metal tip down and then running the knife like so that you don't risk injuring yourself by slicing your finger open. You can also simply do 10 strokes on one side and then 10 strokes on the other. Now for the paper test. Will it slice through paper? Not the greatest. To be honest, I probably could have done it a couple more times. This knife's in pretty bad shape. But it's pretty good. That took me probably 2 minutes to do total. So if you're interested in the quick and dirty method, an electronic sharpener might be the one for you. Right, now for my more preferred method of sharpening. I really love using the Japanese whetstone. Using a whetstone is always going to be about maintaining a 12 to 15 degree angle between the edge of the knife blade and the stone itself. First thing you need to do before you even get started is you've got to soak your whetstone in water. This one is made by a company called King. This is the 1000-6000 grit combination stone. This one does not need to be soaked for that long. It's about 15 to 20 minutes. I like to soak it for about 30 minutes just because I like to err on the side of caution. This knife stone comes with this little stand. It's junk. Get rid of it. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the dollar store and you're going to find one of these little silicone mats that are anti-slip and really, really grippy. And you're just going to lay that down on your working surface. And this is going to be absolutely perfect in terms of keeping your stone in place on the work surface so that it doesn't slide around. These things need to stay wet, and if you just put them on a counter, you're going to, number one, really ruin your counter, and number two, it's going to slide around all over the place. You're going to injure yourself, you're going to damage your blade. Nobody needs that. The other thing that's not often talked about when you purchase a whetstone is the fact that you're going to need a truing stone or a leveling stone. And this is really important because the whetstone needs to be really, really flat and even to produce a great sharp blade. If you're uncertain as to when your stone becomes even, what you can do is you can take a pencil and then draw a grid across the entire stone. And then what you'll see is as you start to grind away at it, the markings will start to disappear where you've grind them. And you can see that the markings are still here and here, but they've gone away here. So that means that these areas are even, the other ones are a little bit deeper. You've got to dig a little bit deeper at them. Next, you just want to polish off the edges so that they don't catch or grip onto the blade as you are sharpening it. And And that's done its job. This is ready to just be set aside for now. A little bit more water on top of the stone. And the other reason I like using that truing stone is because you'll see that some of the stone has released some of its residue. And this residue is super important in terms of helping to sharpen the blade. This is actually what's getting the blade sharp, is that these little stone particles are going to constantly rub against and cause friction, and that's going to sort of grind away at the metal on the blade. You will encounter undoubtedly many different variations of how to position the blade on the stone. For me, it's just as simply as putting the knife at about a 45 to 50 degree angle this way, and then a 12 to 15 degree angle this way. And the way you know a 12 to 15 degree angle is you can just sort of put your thumb along the spine of the knife, and then when your thumb meets the stone, that's about 12 to 15 degrees, give or take. If you can maintain this the entire stage of sharpening, you're good to go. So we're just going to position our knife around 45 to 50 degrees, and then we're just going to start running back and forth. A little bit more water, and then we're going to flip it over onto its other side and just continue to do the exact same thing. You can start to feel a little bit of a burr developing. Usually it's on one side of the blade, not both. That's what you're looking for. If you feel it only along certain spots, it's probably because you haven't really done a proper job of keeping a consistent angle. And that's not a problem. You can just go back over the parts that you've missed and continue to grind away. This will probably take you, especially if it's your first time sharpening using a whetstone, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. Rinse it off, and it's ready for its next step, which is the 6,000 grit stone. And wipe it down fairly clean, and then you're just going to flip over the stone. In this case, we have a 6,000 stone underneath, and again, you want to make sure that you have an even stone, otherwise it's not going to be a great sharpening. You're just going to apply a little bit of water, and then just rub the leveling stone over top. Now it's just as simple as applying a little bit more water and repeating the process. Once you finish this stage, you just want to wipe the blade nice and clean. And then really, it's almost unnecessary because this does a really great job of polishing the blade, but I still like to go over it with the honing rod. Now you can just sort of inspect along the edge of the blade. You can see that it's really nice and sharp, and I can feel a really great edge there along both sides of the blade. It's even got a really nice little sheen along the edge that's really nice and polished there, which I really like. Now, just to test the blade, we're gonna grab ourselves another sheet of paper, and we're just gonna try to make clean incisions. Pretty good. Now, I don't know about you, but that's pretty sharp to me. I mean, maybe somebody can get a little bit sharper if they take a little bit more time. For me, this is satisfactory. I will happily take this knife to work. And again, it's quite an enjoyable process. So the choice is really yours. Are you going to be somebody that uses a whetstone and appreciate the fine art and skill required to sharpen using a whetstone? Or do you need something that's really easy, economical, and fast, like an electronic sharpener? Now, no matter what you choose, the whetstone or the electronic sharpener, you're always going to need to use your honing rod. For everyday maintenance, this is, again, something you're going to do either before or after you use your knife. I always do it before. It's really just as simple as running the knife along the honing rod on both sides, a few strokes, 15 to 20, maybe 20 to 30 depending on your knife, and you're going to notice a significant difference in how your knife performs. It won't sharpen the blade, but it's going to help put the edge back into alignment, be just a little bit more precise in terms of cutting. I really hope you found this video useful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, hit the subscribe button. And always come check me out on Instagram where I'm cooking up a storm at primal_gourmet. I'll link that below. And you can find a bunch of delicious and healthy recipes on my blog, cookprimalgourmet.com. Peace and love.